Hello people of the internet, I'm Jontje, I'm autistic, and I'm wearing this t-shirt to finally complete the collection of my Star Wars t-shirts on camera. Yes. And also, I have another topic for this video, obviously. Which is sort of another follow-up to another one of my videos, which has, I think, engendered some interesting discussion. So I wanted to discuss it further because I'm not very good at typing my thoughts. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. So obviously you've read the topic and my hair has decided it does not want to stay in its place anymore, so goodbye. Not to the hair. And obviously the topic of this video, which we should probably get to at some point, is arrogance. And particularly, in the video that I've already mentioned, I talked about an effect that is specific to autistic puberty and concerns arrogance and the idea that a certain phase of being very arrogant might be a specific part of some autistic people's puberty. And in that video I sort of mentioned that the impression can sometimes arise that specific autistic people, or autistic people in general, if people generalize a bit too much, are arrogant. I guess this is sort of, yeah. Or especially if with the sort of Asperger classified, no, not classified, what do I want to say? People who are sometimes by other people described as having Asperger's and not autism, that kind of thing. I will be doing a video on autism and Asperger's and the terms and everything at some point, but that requires a lot of research, which is, so it obviously needs time. And, well, I wanted to talk about, it sort of made me think of, actually, am I still arrogant? Or, because I know that I'm perceived as that every now and then. Which sort of makes me aware of that a little bit, I think. Not much, honestly, because I just have very little control over how I act towards other people. But anyway, let's actually start the video and start with looking at the actual definition of arrogance, since that is kind of important for this video. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, which I'm using as a reliable source, I guess, it's defined as having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. Which, in other words, it's other people's opinions of oneself, mostly. And obviously, if you're autistic, the opinions of others are usually, others' opinions of you are often not very accurate. And I think there's specific things about being autistic that can sometimes make other people assume that one is arrogant, even though that might not be the case. And, And I don't know. And well, one of the main way that it is sometimes, that is told to me sometimes, that makes me apparently seem arrogant to other people. I don't know, because I don't know what other people think. Is that I, instead of face to face, not talking to a camera, but to actual people, situations, I tend to not speak very much. Or then at the wrong time speak too much. But this sort of not speaking or ignoring people, because sometimes if I don't know what to do, because I don't know what kind of social situation I'm in, sometimes I'm just not capable of talking or just acknowledging someone else's presence, which has made some people afraid of me, which apparently that's some sort of horror movie trope. It's quite funny to me. But I remember some specific things, situations in school where, well, it was very interesting. But anyway, the more common, I think, effect is that people tend to think that one is making an active choice not to speak to them, instead of just not being able to, and therefore perceiving one as arrogant. Which I'm probably coming up as arrogant because I keep saying one. I don't know why my brain is doing that, but it does that sometimes. And now I lost my point. Yeah, actually no, I didn't lose my point. I just made the point I wanted to make. And sometimes I think there's another fact that people perceive one as arrogant just because, well, you're very good at something, or because or because, you know, one has a certain skill and just mentions that, basically. I think what I'm thinking of with me then again is languages, actually. Because even though I'm not very good at talking in one language, I can understand and more or less express myself to a degree in quite a number of languages. And I've learned quite a number of languages. And it's sort of, I don't think about that at all. It's to me, it's a very natural thing of just understanding that language. But every now and then when I'm talking something, especially because I'm studying linguistics, and so when I meet people I don't know or don't know a lot of, at some point they ask what you do, and that obviously means I'm telling them, you know, I'm a linguist, which then engenders the question of, well, how many languages do you speak, or what languages do you speak? Or I just start talking about linguistics and start mentioning different languages, and at some point they're like, wait, how many languages do you actually speak? I'm like, well, a few. No, actually usually I have to count because I can't remember. I can't remember now either. It's like 5 or 6, apparently. And that, I think, sometimes gets misinterpreted, that I'm like, what is it called? that I'm mentioning that on purpose, and that I want to, you know, show other people how great I am by how many languages I speak, which is just, I don't care. Speaking languages is not actually that much of a useful skill. I mean, English is great, sure. But you know, nobody cares if you speak some random local language that a couple of thousand people maybe understand. It's just not a useful skill. That might be a bit exaggeration, but it's not important to me. But just the fact that I talk about it, because I don't think about that as being in any sort of way special, gets mistaken quite a lot. And then on top of that, there's, you know, if you have a special interest and you've had that for a very long time, usually, you know, you become quite knowledgeable in it. And so, you know, it's a lot that, which makes it a bit, which sort of, if you kind of, you do so much stuff with it, some things, some knowledge and some ways of talking in a way, become so natural that you sort of can forget that other people don't really have that knowledge, and that can seem a bit like, or especially, you know, if you start to info dump on someone and just throw tons of different facts at them about whatever, it can, I think, to neurotypical people sometimes feel a bit like you're trying to boast how much you know about it, when in fact it's just interesting. And then for me, on top of that, which is there's this effect of, you know, having alexithymia, which means you don't really know what you're feeling and what your body is doing, and it's very hard to tell. Which results in that I'm not impressed by much, because I'm like, yeah, okay, great. There's like, I don't know, architecture, as a random example. Like if you're, I don't know, in a museum, whatever, and you're looking at something, I don't know what. Just, yeah, that's a thing. Great, it's there. It's historically significant. Okay, cool. It's, you know, it's interesting, but it doesn't have an emotional impact for me, and I think that can sort of sometimes seem, it can sort of, I think, come off a bit too self-important sometimes, which is not necessarily the case. I just either can't tell that I'm actually impressed, or it's just, I sometimes have this thing where I imagine things too much, and then I'm actually not impressed by the result. I remember when I was young and we went on like a fast train, like a sort of intercity, whatever, I don't know, a fast train. You know, there's normal trains and then there's trains that go fast, and I was really, and I don't know, we were going somewhere, I don't remember where. And my parents had sort of told me, oh yeah, we're going on this really fast train, to sort of get me excited about the journey, I guess. And I was sad that the train didn't go as fast as I'd imagined it would go. And that's sort of, that happens to me a lot for some reason, that people say, oh yes, this is really special because something. And I'm like, I imagined it more special than that. Which it's not meant to. I'm not trying to make a point with that. It's just genuinely, I imagine it different. I just have a very good imagination, I guess. I don't know. But a lot of my relatives and some other people who have known me for a long time, they sort of roll their eyes and they're like, yeah, okay, sure, you don't find it special, okay. And I'm just like, I genuinely don't. I just imagined it other. Why am I getting so amused by myself? And I think then there's even the fact that we as autistic people, often have certain sort of rules and habits that we like to keep because, well, you need to know what you... It's just... I can't explain that right now. And I think that sometimes seems like inconsiderate, at least, to other people. Or like, if you have, for example, a very regular schedule, like when you wake up, when you do this, when you do that, it can seem to other people like I guess boasting about being organized, which, I mean, just because you wake up at a certain time, has absolutely nothing to do with how organized you are. But I mean, sure. It just, sticking to them, because not sticking to them is kind of anxiety inducing and just exhausting. Can sometimes seem very inflexible, I think, to neurotypical people, and which they then often interpret as someone being arrogant and too, self-important to do something, which is obviously not the case. And there's also I have some rules that I don't even quite know where they came from, but they're just there, and they're just, I don't know, I just have them. Yeah. This feels very all over the place in a very weird way, with all the weird speaking and getting amused by myself. I have no idea why that happened, but anyway, I hope that I have somehow managed to amuse you, or make you think about something, hopefully. And if that is the case, I would appreciate if you would like this video and maybe subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.